ghouls, ghosts, goblins, government tax audits. All of these things scare the shit out of me. More so, the tax audit. I'm just saying. This is simply horrifying. This month, we take a look at
Tales from the Crypt.
Hello everybody, this is Matt, another edition of Simply Horrifying from Simplistic Reviews. We are now officially in Season 3 of Tales from the Crypt, the retrospective of most of the series, at least my favorite episodes of the series. Season 3, this was from 1991. These episodes were pretty even in this entire season, had some really good ones, had a few ones that were like, not so great. I don't believe I picked as many episodes from season 3 as I did season 2, but there's still a handful of gems in this entire season. So we are going to begin with the episode entitled Carrion Death, and it's carrion as in dead meat carrion. This was directed by Stephen E. Souza, who he's had his ups and downs in Hollywood, to say the least. Probably the highest he's ever been is he wrote the script for Die Hard, which is one of the, if not the greatest action movie of all time. But then he's also written a script for Street Fighter starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. So, like I said before, he's had his ups and downs. But he directed this episode, and it also stars Kyle MacLachlan. And Kyle MacLachlan is he just escaped from death row, and he's killed a few people along the way, and he's just robbed a bank. And he's heading for the border. He's heading for the Mexican border. And I'll also point out that this is also from the Suspense Shock Stories series of EC books. Those usually deal with crime and punishment and stuff like that. But it's surprising that it's from Shock Suspense Stories and not from like Tales from the Crypt, because it's actually quite gory. So Kyle MacLachlan's on the run. And he's also in hot pursuit of him as a highway cop on his motorcycle. So he's chasing after him. The cop loses his bike, Kyle MacLachlan loses his car, and he's out to walk to Mexico from however far he is. But he's being followed by a giant vulture. And this episode reminds me a lot of like the Raven from Edgar Allan Poe, where it's this bird that it's following this guy and really tracking him and kind of being the bane of his existence in a way, leading the cop to him and is following him, waiting for him to die basically. So it kind of reminds me of the Raven a little bit. So eventually, I'll spoil this a little bit, the cop gets killed by Kyle MacLachlan, but not before he handcuffs them to each other. So now the two are handcuffed to each other and the cop swallowed the key. So Kyle MacLachlan not only has to get across the border, but he also has to get across the border with this dead cop in tow. So things happen, and that's it. I'll leave it at that. Has a pretty good ending to it. Of course, it's standard. Comeuppance come for the culprit at the end. And it's a solid episode. Kyle MacLachlan's really good in it, pretty much playing the only person on screen most of the time. And it's got some really good gore in it, like some really excellent gore in it, in fact. So, and probably one of the worst deaths in all the series, I'd say. There's some pretty bad ones, but for being only season 3, up to that point, this was probably the worst death out of all of them. But solid episode, Carrion Death. In terms of like my ranking it, like I said, I'm not ranking these episodes, but if I was to rank it, being that I wasn't ever a fan of the shock suspense story episodes, because a lot of them had to do with jilted lovers and revenge and all that other crap that I wasn't into, this was pretty gory, and it could have almost went over to like a Tales from the Crypt, like a story from the comic books, or like a Vault of Horror, Haunt of Fear, or something like that. So that's it. First episode from season 3, Carrion Death. Really good episode. And that's about it. So I'll see you guys next time for another edition of Simplistic, Simply Horrifying.
full moons, blood moons, dark moons. The only moon that truly scares me is at McDonald's character Mac tonight. Can you possibly fathom the damage a 6-foot-tall man with a giant crescent moon forehead could do? It's not worth a Big Mac, I'll tell you that.